I don't think you're going to see any other easier way to create this basic bodice pattern on the internet. In literal 15 minutes, we're going to be creating this. We're going to start with our basic bodice measurements: the bust, the waist, the hip, the shoulders, bust point, the hip line, the gown length, the waistline, the bust line, and the chest line. So you're going to follow me carefully. Now the bust, the first three are going to be divided by 4, followed by the shoulder is going to be divided by 2. Now from the others are going to start from the shoulder as measurement. Now the first thing that we're going to do is to measure our bust line. Our bust line is 11 inches, followed by our waistline, which is 17 inches. You can refer back to the measurement I just listed below. Now from the waistline, we are going to measure 9.5 inches, and that will become our hip line. I hope you are following me. So we're going to do the same measurement at the other side so we can draw a straight line across for our measurement to be accurate. Now we are going to go ahead and start all the other measurements. From the bust line, we're going to measure 2 inches upwards. Now that will become our chest line. So it's from the chest line that we're going to be creating our armhole measurement. So if you're following me, you draw your line. If you're a beginner, please make sure you use a pattern paper so that you will not be doing trial and error on your fabric. All right, now the next thing that we're going to do is to mark our shoulder measurement. The shoulder measurement that I used for her here was a little too big. I had to reduce, so make sure you take your shoulder measurement properly. Here I used 8.5, that is 17 inches rather, divided by 2. So this measurement will be divided by 2. So her original shoulder measurement is 8 inches, right? So that will be 16 inches divided by 2. Now I'm going to mark that on the chest line. So I'm going to connect that line from up to down. And then from the shoulder downwards, I'm going to measure half an inch. So you're going to look at what I'm doing here. So after measuring half an inch, I'm going to take the center of, that is 9 inches divided by 2. So from the shoulder to this chest line is 9 inches. I'm going to divide that measurement by 2, and then I'll get 4.5 inches. So that is point B. So the half inches from the shoulder is point A, and the half inches from the 9 inches, that is the half measurement from the 9 inches, is going to be point B. So now from there I will come in by half an inch too. So we're going to take half an inch on the two sides, and now this point C is going to be 1 inch. So I'm going to come up. Do you see? I'm going to come up in a vertical manner by 1 inch. So I'm going to connect point A to point B to point C. Now before I connect that, I make sure to mark my center, mark the center measurement, and I will connect. Do you see me connecting? So you can make your own more curved. This is because the armhole is not straight. The armhole is curved. So for us to get that curved nature of the armhole, we're going to be doing that. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my darts, D-A-R-T. So the darts is going to be on the bust line. So you see that the bust line is 2 inches below the chest line, and it's going to be 4.5 inches. Then I will come down to the waistline, and I'm going to mark that same 4.5 inches. All right, are we following me? So the next thing is to get the dart line. The dart line is 5 inches below the waistline, right? So I'm going to mark that at 2 points and connect it with a ruler. So 5 inches below the waistline is our dart line. Now I'm going to go ahead and just give these lines names for you to follow properly. Now we're going to start with the chest line, CL, bust line, BL, waistline, WL, shoulder line, SL. Then I will come down to the dart line, DL, and then I will mark the hip line, HL. If you were able to see the full gown length, I would have given you GL. So just keep in mind that there is GL somewhere down there. Okay, Now we're going to go ahead and continue marking our dart. On the dart line, we're going to mark 4.5 inches too. So that's going to become, on the bust line BL, it's going to be point A. On the waistline is going to be point B, and on the dart line is going to be point C. Are we taking notes? So we're going to connect these 3 lines, 3 dots together to make one line. Now at point A, we're going to come down by 1 inch. So you come downwards by 1 inch, and from that's where we're going to start the connection. Now on the waistline, we're going to come on the left by half an inch and on the right by half an inch. For the people that always think, if you're like me and you always wonder why are they pinching this thing, or why are they like they are marking it, the reason why you remove in quotes half an inch on both sides by the waistline is because the waist is naturally slimmer than the bust and the hip. So do you understand? So this dart gives it more fitting. So instead of us marking from point A, we're going to be marking from that 1 inch that we came down by. Now the next thing is for us to mark our circumference measurement. The circumference measurement, if you can go back to the earlier measurements that I displayed on the screen, you will see that the circumference were the first 3 measurements. That's our bust circumference, bust C, as you see that I put it there, waist C, and hip C. So the bust circumference is 38 inches divided by 4. Now I'm going to add 2 inches for sewing allowance. I'm going to do that on the bust line, and I'm going to do the same thing on the chest line. 38 inches divided by 4, and I'm going to add 2 inches allowance. You see the way I marked it. Now I'm going to go for waist C, that's waist circumference, and remember this 1 inch that we have removed. This thing that we marked here is for removal, not addition. So we are going to mark the waist allowance, which is 32 inches, and 32 inches divided by 4 is 8 inches. So now I'm going to add that 1 inch that we removed, and I'm going to add it back here, and I'm going to add my normal sewing allowance, which is 2 inches. So instead of having 2-inch sewing allowance on the waist, we're going to have 3 inches. Why? Because of this dart allowance, this dart that we removed from the waist. Now coming down to the hip line, the hip line is where I'm going to mark my hip measurement. So I'm going to do the needful, divide my hip measurement circumference by 4, and I'm going to mark it there and add 2 inches allowance. I hope we're following me. So now we're going to connect all these points, connect from bust to waist to hip. Now for the gown length measurement, what I usually do is, if I want something that is not too fitting, I just mark my original hip measurement on the bottom of the gown, so it will not be so fitting. So depending on how fitting you want it to be, just be careful that what is on paper would look different from what is on the dress. So be careful and give as much allowance as possible. Now I'm going to connect all these points as you see me doing so, and our waist is not square, our waist is not up that much, so I'm going to just curve it as much as possible. You see me doing that here. Now before we go on to the next thing that we're supposed to do, I want you to take note of this center here. So now you must take note of this, because when you are transferring this to your fabric is going to be folded into 2. Now the center of that fold is where this center is going to be, meaning that you are not going to cut 2 separate fabrics. Your fabric is going to come out as one piece of fabric with 2 armholes, with 2 sides of waist and 2 sides of hip. So please take note of that, please. Now what I'm doing here is that I am marking the wideness of the neck and the deepness of the neck. The wideness of the neck runs across the shoulder horizontally. That is, we're going to mark it on the shoulder, right? The wideness of the neck that I used here was 7 no, 6 inches divided by 2, so it will come to 3 inches. So I'm going to mark 3 inches horizontally, and the deepness of this neck is 4 inches, so that one is not divided by anything. Now you see the way I made a square box, and I'm going to come up by 1 inch as you see me doing so, and use my curved rule of freehand sketch to curve it like that. So that's what will give us a round neck. Now I hope you're taking note of this. So I wrote here ND is for neck depth, neck deepness. NW is for neck wideness or neck width. I hope you took note of that. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to give allowance. Remember that we're always giving allowance everywhere. So give allowance and start cutting. Now before we finish this cutting, we're going to connect. We forgot to connect the line of the shoulder slope, that ½ inch that we marked earlier. Remember that ½ inch that we marked when we're marking the shoulder? We're going to connect it to the top because your shoulder is slopey. So we're going to cut that out while we are cutting quickly. So you're going to watch me as I cut it out right now. If you're following me step by step, you'll see that we're actually making progress. What we just did here now is the front panel, and now we're going to put this front panel on top of another piece of paper. At the center here, we're going to leave space, that is 1 inch space, and just pin it if you like, or sellotape it like I did. Now the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to be connecting all these lines and just be marking it at the edge for the back panel, because everything is pretty much the same thing, only that the dart is going to be different, and the neck wideness and deepness, no, not wideness but deepness, now is going to be the same. So I'm going to connect the chest line, the bust line, waist line, hip line, dart line, and even the gown length itself. So now you see that I'm going to even all of the waist circumference, the bust circumference, hip circumference. I'm just going to connect and mark out every single thing instead of creating a fresh new one. Are you seeing what I'm doing there? Now the difference, apart from the dart, apart from the neck deepness, but the thing that's going to be slightly different here is the armhole. The armhole, instead of it to have the curve like the front, you know, we have an ½ inch curve for the front. For the back, is just going to be straight and it's going to curve under. Now for the back here, for the deepness of this neck, we're going to be using 1.5 inches deepness, because this, as if you see the video, is actually a very closed neck. So the wider the neck you want, the wider you are going to do. But take note that someone that is slim will not need more than a 7-inch wideness of neck. You see me here marking my zipper allowance. You mark your zipper allowance. The zipper allowance that I used here is 1 inch. Some people use 2 inches, some people use 3 inches. But if you're using up to 3 inches, you're probably very much a beginner, and it's not necessary to use that much. So you see what I marked here. All I'm just going to do now is to all the places that the sellotape was covering, I'm going to mark it out properly. Mark out my zipper allowance so that I will know when I am creating or replicating this on the dress. So mark out by 1 inch zipper allowance, and then go ahead and mark out every other details, including these lines, the bust line, the chest line, the waist line, the dart line, the hip line, and every other thing. You see me doing that. So now I noticed that my phone overheated while I was recording this next part. So what I just did here was that I connected my neck width, my neck wideness still remains 3 inches. That's 6 inches divided by 2. And then remember that my neck deepness is 1.5 inch. Now for the dart, what I was explaining here is that instead of coming from the bust line, now we're going to use the chest line, because we want the fitting on at our back to be fitting from the armhole. So we're just going to come down from the armhole or chest line by 1 inch, and it's going to connect all the way to the dart line. as you see it there. You're going to pick out that same half inch on both sides. So connect the chest line now, not the bust line, 1 inch below the chest line. Connect it to the waistline, connect it to the dart line. See me cutting it out here, and that is pretty much it for a simple basic gown. If you know that you're going to try it down, please let me know in the comments. You know you're going to try it and let me know, right? Thank you very much for coming to this simple tutorial. I am Mercy Adebayo, and the name of this page is Carries and Kings. I'm a fashion designer and I am a freelancer. It's lovely meeting you. See you in the next post. I'm going to be showing you the sewing process. All right, bye everyone.